Hi, my name is Kelly Wilson, and this is my longitudinal data overview for the Nicholson Elementary School staff presentation. The purpose of this data overview is to review demographic changes at Nicholson Elementary over the past 3 years, compare Nicholson Elementary School's milestones data to Cobb County and Georgia data in ELA and math, and take a closer look at the milestones data for several 4th grade subgroups at Nicholson, and to summarize the data and analyze strengths and weaknesses. So first we'll take a look at Nicholson's student population data. Here's our student enrollment. As you can see, in 2017 we had 521 students, and that has declined over the past 3 years. We had 496 in 2008 and down to 480 in 2019. Here's a graph of our ethnicity at Nicholson over the past 3 years. So as you can see, our Hispanic population has increased. Our American Indian has increased as well. Our Asian population has decreased. Black population has decreased pretty significantly, as well as the white population. And 2 or more races has fluctuated a little bit, but it's about the same. This is the percentage of students that receive special services at Nicholson. Over the past 3 years, our EIP population has increased quite a bit, from 17.3% to 25.9% in 2019, and ESOL has remained about the same. Gifted has declined. From 2017 we had 10.3% gifted students, and now in 2019 we had 7.2%. And our SPED population has, again, fluctuated just a little, but it's remained about the same. This chart shows our students that are eligible for free and reduced lunch, and as you can see, it has declined slightly over the past 3 years, which could also be attributed to our decline in the number of students that we have at Nicholson. Okay, let's move on to the Nicholson teacher data. In 2019, we had 42 teachers, and there were 2 teachers with less than a year of experience, 12 teachers with 1 to 10 years experience, 21 teachers with 11 to 20 years experience, 4 teachers with 21 to 30 years of experience, and 3 teachers that had more than 30 years of experience. These 3 pie charts show the ethnicity of our teachers over the past 3 years. There is not much change that has happened. The majority of our teachers are white, and then we have had 3 black teachers and 1 Asian, 1 multiracial, and in the past 2 years we had 1 Hispanic teacher. Let's take a look now at the school, district, and state data comparisons, and these comparisons are using the Georgia Milestones Assessment. The first data that we'll look at is 3rd through 5th grade students who performed in the proficient and distinguished areas. And over here in the corner you'll see the total number of students tested. The green chart shows the number of students tested in ELA, and the yellow is the number of students tested in math. Let's look at ELA first. As you'll see, the number of students that scored in the proficient and distinguished range varied greatly between the state, the county, and Nicholson, particularly between the state overall and Nicholson. You'll see that Nicholson did score higher all 3 years than the total number of 3rd through 5th grade students in the county and the state. So that's definitely something to be celebrated. However, if you do look at the numbers, you will see that Nicholson had 59% of students scoring in this range in 2017, and that has decreased over the past 3 years down to 53%. So this would be something that we would want to discuss and try to figure out why it's declining and what we can do to increase those numbers. Let's look up here at math, and it's pretty similar. Nicholson scored higher or had more 3rd through 5th grade students in the proficient and distinguished range in 2017 than those in the county and the state. In 2018, we had the same number of students in that range in the county. And then you'll see in 2019, Nicholson slipped just below the county and had 52% of students scoring in the proficient and distinguished range. So you'll see a similar trend in math that you did in ELA with Nicholson, and our number of students scoring in the proficient and distinguished range has declined over the past 3 years. It did go up just a tiny bit in 2019, but we are lower in 2019 than we were in 2017. So that's something we might want to look at and try to figure out what's going on as well and what we can do to improve. This slide breaks down a little further into 4th grade data, and it is also comparing Nicholson's data to the county and the state. Over here you'll see the total number of students again that tested in ELA and in math in 4th grade in all of those locations, and you'll notice right away by looking at this graph that Nicholson scored very high, or they had a lot of students scoring in the proficient and distinguished range in 2017 in both ELA and in math. So it would be interesting to find out why there was such a spike in students that scored proficient and distinguished. So I would like to do a little more research into that and find out what happened that year, what was different, and then what caused such a drop down from 71.7% of students scoring in proficient and distinguished down to 55% in 2018 in ELA. And same thing in math. The numbers are a little different, but again, there's that huge drop down. So it would be interesting to do a little more research and figure out what changed, what's different, and what happened there. But as you can see, Nicholson scored pretty well in ELA compared to the other 4th grade students in the state and the county. And in math, they did pretty well, obviously much higher in 2017, but in 2018, they were just below the students in the county and a little bit farther behind in 2019 than the students in the county, and they were right on track with the statewide 4th graders. So now we'll drill down the data and focus only on Nicholson's 4th grade students on the milestone assessments. And we'll break it down into subgroups, beginning with ethnicity. You'll notice that looking at the ELA milestones for 4th grade, over the past 3 years, all 3 groups, Hispanics, Blacks, and white students, all decreased in the number of students that scored proficient and distinguished on the milestones. However, in math, over the past 3 years, you'll see that the Hispanic population had quite an increase in the number of students that scored proficient and distinguished. So they went from 33.3% in 2017 all the way up to 55% in 2019, which is a great trend, and hopefully we can keep that going. However, the other 2 groups, Black and white students, have significantly decreased over the past 3 years. The Black students that scored proficient and distinguished went from 75.1% in 2017 all the way down to 9.1% in 2019, which is quite alarming. And you'll see a big drop in the number of white students as well. We went from 80.3% in 2017 down to 59.4% in 2019. And next we'll look at gender. And there wasn't much discrepancy here between males and females. For the most part, you'll see a bigger gap in 2019 on the ELA assessment. The females scored much higher than the males on this test this year. However, the rest of the years on math and ELA were pretty close. And finally, we'll look at economic status. I was a little surprised to not see a bigger achievement gap between students that were economically disadvantaged and those that were not. There is a bigger gap in ELA, especially in 2018 and 2019. However, in math, these gaps are not as significant, and in 2017, the gap was not far off. And as you can see, both groups scored higher in 2017, which is that year that we saw the big influx in grades. So let's take a look at all of the data and let's discuss some strengths and weaknesses. 3 strengths that I identified for Nicholson is that over the past 3 years, they have had more students in grades 3 through 5 performing at proficient and distinguished levels on the ELA milestones than the district and the state. And in 2017, 4th grade Nicholson students scored significantly higher than the district and state. In math, there were 72.4% of them that scored in the proficient and distinguished range, and in ELA, it was 71.7%. And the percentage of 4th grade Hispanic students at Nicholson scoring in the proficient and distinguished levels on math had increased from 33.3% to 55% over the past 3 years, which is amazing. Now let's take a look at some weaknesses. Over the past 3 years, Nicholson's student performance in grades 3 through 5 on both the ELA and the math milestones has declined. And also over the past 3 years, the 4th grade white population has had a significant decrease in ELA milestone scores from 82.2% down to 56.3%. And finally, the 4th grade black population at Nicholson has also had a significant decrease, but on the math milestones, and they decreased from 75.1% to 9.1% over the past 3 years. And now we'll look at academic improvements. I would suggest that we focus on 2 areas for academic improvement, and that would be to first increase students' academic knowledge and teach test-taking strategies to increase overall performance on the Georgia milestones, and work on closing the achievement gap between white students and Black and Hispanic students on both ELA and math. So some action steps I would recommend are to analyze the milestones and other assessment data to determine areas of weaknesses in math and ELA, and then develop intervention strategies to address those areas of weakness. Teach test-taking strategies to students, and present data to the district and state to show the need for additional academic support for the Black and Hispanic student population, and increase parent involvement by providing informational sessions to answer parent questions regarding academics and to teach them ways that they can help their child at home. And finally, we have some discussion questions. First, why were Nicholson's 4th grade milestone scores in ELA significantly higher in 2017 than the district and the state? What caused the significant decrease in ELA and math milestones from 2017 to 18? What can we do to close the achievement gap between white and Black students, as well as the gap between white and Hispanic students? I would also like to discuss the possibility of increasing our staff diversity to help increase achievement for Hispanic and Black students, and how can we increase our scores on future ELA and math milestones. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much.